Are you looking for movie suggestions for this spooky season? How about, instead of a single movie, what about a whole franchise? Something that's truly binge-worthy if you've got the time. Well, if that's what you're looking for, you have come to the right place. I have some suggestions for you. Join me today. This is the Geek Cabal channel. If you've not been here before, my name is Bobbie. And today we're going to be talking about some whole horror series that are worth checking out if you want to try to binge them here this spooky season. I know the clock's kind of ticking here before the 31st, but if you're like me when it comes to horror movies, every month is spooky season. So, I watch horror movies all the time. It's probably my favorite genre. It or sci-fi, it's kind of a toss-up. A lot of crossover there, by the way. But yeah, so if you haven't seen them, I've got a couple other videos recommending various horror movies, and there are going to be some of these going on into November because the month kind of got away from me here, and I still have several of these planned. So, here we go. But these are going to be, instead of single movies, these are the whole series where the quality is pretty consistent across, and I think for the most part is good. Unlike the others, there are 6, unlike my other videos where I've done 5 at a time, there's going to be 6 in this one because I don't plan on doing a second one of these. And one of these is kind of like a consolation prize. So, still good if it's what you're looking for. But it's not what a lot of people are looking for. So, but it's a very popular franchise, so, Anyway, and that one will be last, by the way. So, a couple of these I've done separate videos on, talking about the series themselves, and they'll be linked in the description and up at the top and everything else. So, all right, let's go kind of short to long here. Now, the first one, there are 5 movies in the franchise. That is the Phantasm series. The original Phantasm is fantastic. It's a horror masterpiece. Even though I think J.J. Abrams is not the greatest director in the world, he thinks the first one's a masterpiece, and I think had a hand in doing the remastered version of it. I think the first 4 are pretty solid. 5's a little shaky, over reliance on CGI, and I don't know if they really knew where they were going with the plot. But yeah, it's they wanted to make one last one with Angus Scrimm, the guy who plays the tall man in them. So the movies center around the tall man, who, as you progress through the series, you find out is a being from another dimension who is stealing corpses to turn into slaves back home. They don't elaborate a whole lot on that. That's really just the thing to get the plot moving. The thing that's most known for is, again, the tall man, but he uses these floating silver spheres that he sends flying out that have blades that pop out of them, and they bury themselves in someone's forehead, and a drill bit pops out and drills into their skull and kills them. Yeah, a bunch of other creepy things, but that's the main thing that they're known for. And again, the first one is definitely the really good one. Now, the second one was made by a different studio, I believe. So, one of the actors is changed, although he's older, because he's a kid in the first movie. But he's older in this one. And then the third one, we get most of the original cast is back. I mean, other than Mike, the younger guy, the other cast members are all the same, I believe, in the second one. But then the third one, Mike is back to the guy who was a kid in the first one, now he's an adult in the third one. And through the fifth one, everyone's the same. So, one of my favorite horror series. Again, I think the fifth one's the only real questionable entry. Does a lot of, mind-bending stuff, moving between dimensions, eventually moving through time. Implications of a time loop at the end of the fourth one. The series could have ended on number 4. We don't need answers to everything in that series. But anyway, definitely worth checking out. Like I said, 5 movies in the franchise. You might have difficulty getting all 5 of them, because again, 2 different studio. And I think even whenever Joe Bob Briggs ran this on Shudder one year, he had 1, 3, 4, and 5 for that very reason. So it is what it is. Now, next up is Scream. Now, I like the Scream movies. I know some people don't. And I mean, that's true of all movies, obviously, but some people think that they're, I don't know, too mocking of other horror movies, something. They're just, unoriginal schlock. I think they become their own thing after a certain point. And I think there's some very clever things happen if you pay attention throughout the movies. There are 6 of them altogether. I have watched the first 3 a lot more than I've watched the latter 3. Now, part of that's because the first 3 have existed for longer, so I've had more time to watch them. Similar to like Star Wars, I've watched the original trilogy a lot more than I watched the prequel trilogy, definitely a lot more than the sequel trilogy. Or like Star Trek movies, I watched the original series movies a lot more than I watched the Next Generation movies. Here, I don't think it's necessarily the quality, it's just, again, it's a time frame thing. However, there was a big gap between 3 and 4 as far as filming, and then 5 and 6 came out almost right on top of each other. But I do think overall it's an excellent series. I think the first movie only kind of suffers in that, and I didn't realize this till Jimmy said something about it one day, that it's a cast of teenagers, and it's 90s writing where everyone tries to sound kind of like an arrogant smartass, and it doesn't work. Like, even though teenagers do act that way, they don't talk that way generally. They did in the 90s, from what I remember of being one of them. Like, there's just something about the dialogue. It's a little, just doesn't quite sync up. And then the second one does suffer from what I call sequelitis. It's very clear that the second one is like, oh my god, the first one made a lot of money, let's rush a sequel out. Like, it's not bad, but it's the weakest entry of the original 3. The third one is a strong ending. If that would have been the end of the series, like, would have been great as far as I'm concerned, would have been fantastic. 4 is pretty solid, though. Now, I've only watched 5 and 6 a couple times, but 4 is definitely pretty solid, and I don't remember even having any real problems with 5 and 6. One minor note, if you do happen to watch these and you're like, oh, this isn't too bad, I could let such and such younger sibling, child, niece, nephew, whatever watch these. There's a dramatic escalation in violence between 5 and 6, as far as like just the graphic level of violence. Now, these movies involve a lot of people being stabbed, because that's the preferred weapon of the killer. But part 6 in particular, like, it takes things up a couple notches. Similar to the difference between Halloween 1 and 2, if you've ever seen those movies. But yeah, overall, I like them. I never did watch the series, so I can't recommend anything on that. I don't think it ties into the movies at all, but again, I didn't watch it, so. And they are presently working on a part 7, so, you can get ahead of that curve in case you've not seen these yet. Yeah, so then we have the Evil Dead series. Now, this is like some other entries in here. This is where we've got some choose your own adventure kind of stuff going on, and which paths you're going to go down. So, the Evil Dead series for a long time was just 3 main movies: The Evil Dead, The Evil Dead 2, and The Army of Darkness, which is The Evil Dead 3. And no, I couldn't tell you why it's not called Evil Dead 3, but those were the core movies. Like that was it. From like, I want to say the early 90s is when Army of Darkness came out, early to mid 90s, up through less than 10 years ago, probably. That was the franchise. I think there was a video game at one point. There's been some comics here and there, but like that was it. And then we got 2 more movies, which are not sequels to the original 3, nor are they sequels to themselves, as near as I can tell. Although they have similar aesthetics and everything, but I don't believe they're actually. I don't believe either one's a sequel to the other. The first of the new ones is just a remake of The Evil Dead, which, in fairness, The Evil Dead 2 is something of a remake of The Evil Dead 1. The Evil Dead, the first one, is played mostly for horror. The Evil Dead 2 goes a lot farther into the comedy era than The Army of Darkness, is, in my opinion, primarily a comedy with horror elements. Now, The Army of Darkness, kids could watch that. There's only one scene I keep forgetting is in the movie where there literally is like for a couple of frames, they have a few topless women walk across the screen. Haven't seen them before that point. Don't see them after that point. I have no idea why they were there. But if you're watching on TV, you won't see that scene. And it's, I think, about the only thing that's edited on TV. There's some language here and there, but that's about it. The two new movies, definitely not for kids. They definitely have like a more modern, just like total horror sadism kind of thing. Like, definitely not for kids. So you have the original three. Then you have these other two unrelated movies, both unrelated to each other and unrelated to the original three. And then you have a TV series that had, I think, 3 seasons that does follow the movies. And the fallout of everything that happened, Ash having to deal with some real-world consequences of the events of the first 3 movies. Because a lot of people died and he was the only survivor. And there were some hard questions. No one seemed to question his mechanical hand that he ended up with. But I thought the series was pretty entertaining. It does end on a cliffhanger because it never was a season 4. I think it's just 3 seasons. Lucy Lawless ends up showing up in there. You've still got Bruce Campbell as the main character, Ash, all throughout. Bruce Campbell's awesome in basically everything he does. The show is no exception. He's great. Then some other kind of mythology kind of builds up. I think Lee Majors plays his dad. But yeah, the series pretty good. If you like the movies, check out the series. Pretty good. If you liked the first movie, check out the 2 new movies. But you got a lot of material to work with here, depending on how far down the rabbit hole you want to go. So, then we have the George Romero zombie movies. Now, there's not like an actual name for these, so I can't just tell you, watch this. And the names of the movies, because of the naming convention of other zombie movies, it's very difficult to be like, oh, just follow this turn of phrase, because a lot of other movies use it. So, what I'm talking about is, and again, similar to The Evil Dead, there's a big gap in the series. You had Night of the Living Dead, the classic, the zombie movie from which the whole genre basically flows. There were other zombie movies, but it is the one that seems to be the progenitor of the modern zombie movie. And there, I do mean you can either watch the black and white one, or the color remake from the 90s, which is technically not George Romero. It's Tom Savini, but he had George Romero's blessing, and as far as I'm aware, George Romero liked it. I prefer the color version, but that's just me. Then Dawn of the Dead, which is the sequel, and then Day of the Dead. And then for the longest time, this was it. This was the Romero zombie universe. All right, and Day of the Dead came out in 1985. Yeah, this is the 40th anniversary this year. So, for a long time, that was it. And then in the 2000s, he made Land of the Dead, which that one was actually a studio movie, unlike the other 3. So it has, quote-unquote, real actors in it, like Dennis Hopper and some other folks, Asia Argento. Yeah, can't think of anyone else off the top of my head, but there are other, like, John Leguizamo. And then he made 2 more direct-to-home video movies. That was Survival of the Dead and Diary of the Dead. Now, overall, the movies are only very loosely connected. There's not like a plot through line. There's hardly any recurring characters, and that's only in the last 3 movies, and it's one guy. So, like, no one from Night of the Living Dead is in Dawn of the Dead. No one in Dawn of the Dead is in Day of the Dead. Different groups of survivors and different places. Then, and none of them show up in Land of the Dead. Then you had, after Land of the Dead, the 2 direct-to-DVD movies. You have a guy who plays a bit part in Diary of the Dead. He's a soldier. And then he's the main character in Survival of the Dead. And then he's a side character in Land of the Dead. Now, because of, I think, if I remember, because of different studios making them, his character had to have different names, but it's the same actor, and it's, it's him. He is supposed to be the same character. And that's it. That's the only connecting character. The other thing is, like, it's the zombie apocalypse, and it's just from different perspectives and different times. Now, in theory, Night of the Living Dead, Dawn of the Dead, Diary of the Dead and Survival of the Dead are all roughly contemporary with each other within the first few hours, days, weeks of the outbreak of the apocalypse. And then Day of the Dead and Land of the Dead take place years into it, after the world has completely been devastated. So, and I did some videos on this one, mainly talking about if you were ever going to remake this particular franchise, like what would you want to do with it? And so I did a couple videos talking about that. And like I said, I'll link to those down in the description. But basically, zombie movies, definitely not for children, because I'm pretty sure all of them involve people literally being torn apart and eaten, which can be quite satisfying because most of the people that get it definitely richly deserve it. But yeah, so it's those specific movies. Like I said, there are other franchises that use the same similar names. The Return of the Living Dead franchise is spun off of a lawsuit from the Night of the Living Dead. That's why it has the Of the Living Dead title. Night of the Living Dead has a couple other remakes. I do not recommend them. So then, of course, horror movies for Halloween series. Of course, I'm going to say Halloween. Michael Myers going on a killing spree several times, with one lone exception. Yeah. So I've done an in-depth video set on these movies, but briefly, this is the one that is literally the choose your own adventure, because of different starts and stops and different people taking over and everything. You have a lot of options here. So in theory, you could watch just the first movie. It is a complete narrative. You might not think it has a satisfying conclusion, but it's for a purpose, and it was not to leave it open-ended to spawn infinite sequels. It was Michael Myers is shot at the end of the movie. Minor spoiler alert for a movie from 1978 here. Michael Myers is shot at the end of the movie. Falls off a balcony. Dr. Loomis makes sure that Laurie's all right, then goes, and Michael Myers gone, and that's the end of the movie. The last is just a couple shots of the various places he's been with the breathing, and the music starts up, and that's it. Now, it's not because we're supposed to think Michael's unstoppable. It's not because we're supposed to think that this is just going to lead to infinite sequels. It's because Michael is the personification of death. And I know, like in horror movies, of course, that's kind of what the bad guy's supposed to be like. Here, it's literal, because that's why he's slow, methodical, but you cannot outrun him, no matter how slow he is, because death always wins. And it was a metaphorical kind of thing. So then it made a lot of money, so they had to make a sequel. So now Halloween 1 and 2 are a complete narrative, because Halloween 2 has a satisfying ending. A couple of the characters buy the farm, and if you ever watch the end of Halloween 2, you would not think that leads into any other sequels, because it looks like Michael Myers is one crispy critter at the end of that movie. But again, money. So you could just stop at part 2. 1 and 2 make a satisfying, complete narrative. Then you have the third movie, which does not have Michael Myers and is only barely connected to the others. Now, I happen to like the third one. I'm one of those crazy people that likes Season of the Witch. But a lot of people don't. Take it or leave it. It's a story involving a stolen chunk of Stonehenge, Halloween masks, and the setup for a mass sacrifice that's going to be triggered by something that's going to show up on TV. And the movie that's going to be playing while it happens is the movie Halloween. So, yeah, that's the connection. And then another connection 30 years later in an unrelated spin-off sequel. So, you have that. I should note that Halloween, the first one, does also have a TV version. And I don't mean it's edited for TV, different channels. No, I mean literally you can buy the TV version. It's one of the only movies I know of that you can buy the TV edit, because NBC wanted to get that movie on TV as quickly as possible. So they had Carpenter help edit it to make it appropriate for TV, but also while they were filming Halloween 2, they filmed additional scenes for the TV version, because Halloween does not in any way, shape, or form allude to a plot twist that happens in Halloween 2. So they filmed scenes to kind of connect into that without blowing it. but that you would see them whenever you watch Halloween 2, you're like, oh, okay, I see what all this meant. So there are people who want the TV version. Then I think there's an edit that has both movies reconciled into a single movie. So all the gore and everything. Not that there's a lot of gore in the first Halloween, to be totally honest, but also including the additional TV scenes. So that's the superior version. Then I think there is a TV edit of Halloween 2 as well. I saw that when I was searching for the TV edit of Halloween 1 one day. So then you have Halloween 3. Okay, so then you have Halloween 4, 5, and 6. Where Michael Myers pursues the daughter of Jamie Lee Curtis from the first and second movie, and features Donald Pleasance returning as Dr. Loomis. So Halloween 1, 2, 4, 5, and 6 are one narrative arc. But then they decided, let's go a little bit of a different route. They made Halloween H2O, which is Halloween 20 years later, nothing to do with water, or Halloween 7 if you prefer. So this one mostly ignores 4, 5, and 6. Or at the very least, the implication is that Jamie Lee Curtis is the worst mother ever, because it shows that Laurie is alive, whereas 4 starts off with implying that she's dead and someone else is raising her daughter. So if this is connected, then she just abandoned her daughter to her fate, which was to be pursued by her psychotic brother. And so there was actually going to be a scene, apparently, there's a scene in the script, it just wasn't filmed, to connect these movies. So it's up to you if you want to view this as part 7 or not, or if it's really a different part 3. So it and Halloween Resurrection, which is Halloween 8, they are connected. Resurrection follows the events of H2O. So 1, 2, 7, and 8 are one narrative through line. Then you have the more recent one, which is just called Halloween, which follows from Halloween, the first one. It doesn't include the second one like all the others do, because it rejects the idea that Laurie is Michael's sister. It mentions it, but then rejects it. I think that's to distance itself from Halloween 2. So Halloween 2 could have happened or not. It's up to you, basically. Then, no, I don't think it could have, because you see Michael a little bit. He's not all burned up, so it could not have happened. And as you progress in the new ones into Halloween Kills, I think, you see that no, 2 could not have happened. So you have Halloween, and you have Halloween, which I think is like Halloween 2019 or something, 2017. Michael Myers breaks out of prison and kills a bunch of people. The body count went up dramatically in this one. There's literally a moment where he starts at one end of the street, starts going through each house and killing everyone in it. So, yeah, the violence escalated tremendously in this one. Then we have Halloween Kills, which is the direct sequel that picks up literally right where Halloween, the second movie with the name Halloween, kicks off. And it has doesn't even really conclude, it just kind of stops, where the townspeople almost have Michael, and then they let him get up and he just murders all of them and some other people, and then the movie just kind of ends. And then you have Halloween Ends, which does have a definitive ending, although a lot of people don't like it because it's a lot less Michael Myers and a lot more to do with the reaction of the people in the town to everything that's happened, the effect on the townsfolk, and certain specific characters that have popped up, and Laurie. And I liked it because it did something different, but some people don't like it. So you have Halloween, and then Halloween Kills, and Halloween Ends. That's another through line. And then you have the 2 Rob Zombie movies. The first Rob Zombie movie is a backstory for Michael Myers, and then a warp speed remake of the first movie, all kind of crammed together. And then Halloween 2 goes its own way. It pays homage to the original Halloween 2, where it starts off in the hospital and everything, like the second movie, but it turns out that's a dream that Laurie's having, and then it goes its own way with things. I think the Rob Zombie movies are decent. I liked them. You've got some stars in those. You have Malcolm McDowell as Dr. Loomis. You have Rob Zombie's wife, Sherry Moon Zombie, is in it as Michael's mom. You have, is it Ken Foree? I think he's in the first one. I think it's Ken Foree. And I think Sid Haig's in there too. Then you have Bill Moseley is a security guard towards the beginning of the movie. You have Danny Trejo is a janitor there at the prison towards the beginning of the movie. And you also have Danielle Harris, who played Jamie Lee Curtis's Laurie's daughter in Halloween 4 and 5. She's in it as Sheriff Beckett's daughter because she's kind of short, still looks very young. So she almost pulls off actually looking a teenager, despite the fact she's almost my age. And she's in it. Brad Dourif, he's the sheriff. And I'm sure I'm forgetting other people. I'm trying to think of who plays Michael in those two. This big guy, he's a wrestler. I can't think of who it is. I don't think it's Tyler Mane. I think it's someone else. But it might be Tyler Mane. But anyway, they definitely go off in like some weird directions in part 2. Like just psychotic land. As Rob Zombie movies tend to do. So, yeah. Then you have just, like I said, Halloween 3 just sitting there flipping in the window on its own. So I would just watch them in order. I would watch the main through line from Halloween to Halloween Ends. Just watch them in release order and make up your mind as to what you consider canon for each of those little parts and turns and everything, and then watch the 2 Rob Zombie movies. In Halloween Ends, the Silver Shamrock masks from Halloween 3 do show up on some people shortly before Michael kills them all. So there is a canon tie-in back to Halloween 3 in Halloween Ends. So yeah. Yeah, those are my main 5 suggestions. Those are what I call the good franchises. Now, if you just want over-the-top murder slasher fest with very little actual plot that literally boils down to stupid people do stupid things and get killed for it, then this is what my bonus suggestion is for you. The Friday the 13th franchise. Now, the first one is decent. It literally only exists as a knockoff to Halloween. The people who made it were told by the studio, Halloween just made a ton of money. We need that in our lives. Go make it. And so they came up with the script for Friday the 13th, and they couldn't name it after any other holidays they could think of, so they went with Friday the 13th. And then the first one does not have Jason as the killer. In case you've not seen Scream or not seen these movies and don't know a little bit of trivia here, it's actually Jason's mom, Mrs. Voorhees. Now the second one has Jason, and Jason is the killer from that point forward. So the main franchise has 10 entries, 1 through 10. And then a couple of them have subtitles, but they don't really start to matter until part 8. Part 8 is Jason Takes Manhattan, which is where Jason goes to Manhattan pursuing people from Camp Crystal Lake, which is where the other movies all take place. So it's Jason, towards the end of the movie, it's Jason killing people in New York City. Then you have Jason Goes to Hell, which is part 9, where the government shows up, shoots him a whole bunch, takes his body somewhere, the coroner eats his heart and becomes possessed, and takes it back to Camp Crystal Lake, puts it in the body of someone that was related to him to turn it back into Jason, and then in the end they shoot him some more, and it's implied that Freddy Krueger drags him to hell. Then you have Jason X, which is also the Roman numeral for 10, for those who don't know, it's part 10. But this one is in the future, and Jason gets taken to space, and he kills a bunch of people on a spaceship. It is ridiculously over the top, and I love every minute of it. It is just so ludicrous. It is not what I would call a good movie, but it's a very entertaining movie, if you like those kind of movies. Which is kind of all the Friday the 13th movies. They're not good movies. Like these others, I can maybe kind of defend on some artistic merit, not Friday the 13th. No. It's a total slasher fest. Everyone in those movies exists to be killed by Jason at some point. And most of them deserve it, because most of them are idiots. So the main franchise has 10 entries. Then there's a remake from about, I'm going to guesstimate 10 years ago, but I'm probably off. It's probably like 20 years ago. It has to be a remake of at least part 2 because Jason's the killer with no real sign of his mom. Or it's just an amalgamation of like 2 through 8, 2 through 7, and then just kind of remade. I thought it was decent. It with a little bit of changes, it could have just been a new part. It just could have just been part 11 that would have taken place in the present before 10. So I thought it was decent. And then there's Freddy versus Jason, which is where it crosses over with the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise, and he fights Freddy Krueger. That one also is just glorious, and it's stupid, over the top. Hey, let's just go for it kind of thing here. So, yeah, it's pretty good. That was Robert Englund's final outing as Freddy, and I wish they would have gotten Kane Hodder to be Jason, but they got someone else. So that one is Freddy from the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise. He's a dream demon, essentially. He was a mortal man and was burned alive by the townspeople and made some deal with some demons, and now he haunts kids' dreams and kills them. But his power comes from people knowing about him and thinking about him and dreaming about him. Well, the townspeople figured that out and figured out a way to stop it. So they did, so now he's just sitting in hell, unable to escape. And so he needs something to reinvigorate the town thinking about him. So he finds Jason in hell, sends him back to his mortal body, reanimates, and aims him towards Elm Street, whatever town that was in. And so he shows up and starts killing people, and the townsfolk are like, oh my god, Freddy's back. Don't know that it's really just the hockey mask zombie that just murders everything. And then Freddy starts kind of getting his juice back, but then he can't turn Jason off. So now the kids are like, oh great, now we're stuck between two murdering psychos, and Freddy's got to try to figure out how to turn off Jason, and Jason's just killing people. And it ends with a, final battle in the real world where, you'll watch it. But, so those are 6 franchises you should check out. There's a few others, but these are the ones that I feel have pretty even consistency across them, or mostly even. Friday the 13th is evenly schlock all the way through. Halloween is consistently a better made movie series all the way through. Some people don't think 3 is, but whatever. The Romero movies are pretty even. The Scream movies are pretty even. So, yeah. These are all worth checking out, in my opinion. Obviously, you don't have time to watch them all between now and Halloween, but, if you're like me, you watch horror movies year-round. So, if you're not seeing any of these, definitely worth checking out. Let me know down in the comments. These you really like, dislike. There are ones that you like most of them, but they just got that one that you just don't care for, or ones where they're just like, man, this one entry is good, but the rest of the franchise sucks. Anything like that, or any other franchises you think are pretty consistent all the way through that I should recommend maybe next year. Anything at all like that, let me know down in the comments. But otherwise, like, share, subscribe, all that fun stuff. And I'd like to thank everyone that helped us get over 600 subscribers recently, and couldn't do it without you folks. Hopefully you'll stick around, see where things go from here. But that is all I have for today. So just remember to ask yourself, what's your favorite scary movie?
What's your favorite scary movie?